up in the casino and you can put the lot on 36. Now indirect third here, now right into the left, keeping well into the camber. Now flat here, and the next bend is flat, we don't lift at all. Chop this corner to the right and drift right out to the left. Now you're going downhill past the bars and strip clubs, approaching around about 70 to 75 mark. Now brake hard here and down into second, keep well into the right, again it's heavily cambered. You're approaching the station's hairpin here. Now brake hard down into second and take this quite slowly, otherwise you go out too far. Back into third gear, there's a right-hander coming up now, and another right-hander on the C front. Now take this quite late and drift right out onto the pavement, there. Now accelerate hard here, third and third overdrive, and now this is the fastest part of the course for us in a touring car. We get up to about 90 miles an hour here. Now you're approaching the chicane. Downhill, here it comes. A dab on the brakes and a flick left and right here. And now you approach, this is quite slippery and you drift right out towards the sea. Now the Tobacconist Kiosk corner coming up, and there's a bump as you approach it which tends to throw you. Now a dab on the brakes, chop it in here. Now the masonry on the right really comes up close. Now we're passing what is the pits on the Grand Prix circuit. Again, this is quite slippery. We get up to about 80-85 miles an hour here, approaching the gasworks hairpin. Now as this is very slippery, you brake a bit early for this. Down into second, keep quite close into the right now. Let it drift out to the left and accelerate to start your second lap, and by the grace of God you've completed one lap of the Monaco Grand Prix circuit.
Which makes it all sound delightfully simple, but for the Roots Group team much was still at stake. All 5 works Rapiers had qualified in the first 20. In the lead by 43 seconds were the Swedish pair Erik Karlsson and Gunnar Hagbom. Third was Paddy Hopkirk, leading the Rapier team and highest placed British competitor. And as Louis Chiron raised his starter's flag, the excitement even here had never been more intense. Away goes Karlsson, and the rest follow at 10-second intervals. Paddy Hopkirk goes joyfully into battle. Nere, the highest placed Frenchman, lying 5th. Pete Proctor's Rapier lying 4th. And the remarkable René Troutman at this time 9th. Karlsson has Lang in hot pursuit of his 43-second lead. Paddy Hopkirk has little hope of gaining a place, but sets out to try. Peter Proctor just can't help trying anyway. At the station hairpin, Karlsson is still holding off Lang. And this sort of thing reminds Paddy Hopkirk of his beloved Circuit of Ireland. Peter Proctor, with racing experience at Le Mans, Sebring and in Formula Junior, quickly settles down. And Erik Karlsson is still ahead of Lang as they clear the gasworks hairpin at the start of their first timed lap of the 4. Behind them, Paddy Hopkirk. But up the hill, the little Saab is overtaken by the big Mercedes. Lang leads at the casino. The Rapiers show off their handling on the fast and frightening left-hander. Lang still has Karlsson on his tail, and now Siegel Morris joins them on the big Grand Touring Healy. Paddy Hopkirk weaves his way past the station and down towards the sea. And at the gasworks, Siegel Morris takes Karlsson and sets off after Lang. Peter Proctor is gaining a 1.5 seconds per lap on Hopkirk. But Lang now realizes he can't make up enough on Karlsson to snatch the all-out victory. Proctor hurls the Rapier past the casino. And here's Paddy Hopkirk again, fast but very conscious of the fact that he too has a 40-second lead on his nearest pursuer, and that his third place in the rally is only challenged by his teammate Proctor. As for the Yorkshireman, this has been an amazing drive. But for a burst tyre on the very first special section in the mountains, Peter Proctor might well have been challenging Carlson for the lead. As it is, the two Rapiers lead their class, lie third and fourth in the general classification, and are highest placed British competitors. Hopkirk's best lap stands at 2:15.7, Proctor's at 2:13.6, and Carlson's at 2:14.3. The Frenchmen are lapping at around 2 minutes 20 seconds, and Troutman has caught Nere. But behind this exciting racing on the Grand Prix circuit lies all the achievement of the road sections of the rally, and in particular the 5 special stages in the final 16 hours. These varied in length from 10 to 30 miles. All were on narrow mountain roads in wild and deserted country, and in all cases the object was simply to cover the section from starting control to finish in the minimum possible time. This was therefore nothing less than racing on the roads, but instead of the massed start, such as we normally nowadays see, the cars were started at 30-second intervals. It was a swing back to the great tradition of the road races of the past, the Mille-Miglia, and indeed the earliest Grand Prix from city to city. Despite the individual starts and timing, overtaking was a natural problem and a natural hazard of the course. From slow hairpins to flat-eyed swerves, here's Peter Harper getting a hustle on. Old hand John Sprinsel with the fair newcomer Christopher Carrier. And there's a spare second or so to be saved by accurate braking into the control at the end of a special section. Here's Paddy Hopkirk's arrival. And here's Peter Proctor slithering home just 4 seconds quicker than his teammate and still ahead of David Siegel-Morris. But having heard Peter Harper's commentary on the circuit, let's see the man in action. With him in the second heat was our new teammate, Grand Prix driver Graham Hill. Harper, slowed by a minor electrical fault in the mountains, is determined to improve on his position in this final test, and the team prize is still at stake. Past the Hotel de Paris and through the Casino Square goes Graham Hill. Harper, more familiar with the Rapier, is gaining ground. At the station, Graham Hill has caught de la Jeunesse. Harper reckons he'll catch the Citroën next time round. And not for nothing do they call this place the Gasworks. Graham Hill's lap time comes down to 2 minutes 12.7. Harper gets in the best Rapier lap at 2 minutes 10.9 and is really on the limit. Graham Hill now catches Noel's Mercedes. And Peter Harper has the pair of them in his sights. And there's Tiny Lewis in the 5th Works Rapier. For once again, in the arduous conditions of the mountains and against the stopwatch, the Roots Group team had distinguished itself against the toughest competition in the game. Drivers like the French Grand Prix champion Maurice Trintignant, here setting out on the Saint-Auban special section. There's Rossdale and Freeman, one of no less than 20 privately entered Sunbeams which backed the works cars. Graham Hill, new to rallying, had all the experience of Peter Jopp to help him along, and a fine partnership they made. This section, starting from a high plateau in the Maritime Alps, immediately plunges through a spectacular gorge. But Paddy Hopkirk's seen it all before a dozen times. Others just can't wait to get at it, even for the time card. Paddy Hopkirk and Jack Scott had made third fastest time of all on the very first section. Now, by swift and consistent driving, they were consolidating their position. Peter Proctor and Graham Robson were brilliant here again, 10 seconds faster than Hopkirk, fourth fastest overall. A fast and familiar straight from many rally routes. And here's a private Scandinavian dice with a well-held slide by the Norwegian Vollen. The celebrated bridge at Calanque, where a deceptive curve has claimed many victims in its time. Peter Harper and I in full cry through the village. And here's Eric Carlson giving his navigator Gunnar Hagbaum his first experience of the Monte Carlo Rally. Close behind, as they were throughout the journey, Pat Moss and Ann Wisdom. The famous Morley brothers in action. Alan Fraser, another very experienced Sunbeam private entrant. And the big man with the big reputation, whom we all called Tiny Lewis. But even if it had been a rare dice in the mountains, and it was, this was to be the rally of the Grand Prix circuit. And here's Graham Hill still harrying Noel's Mercedes. Peter Harper demonstrates the difficult line through Saint-Devote. The long drift past the casino. Graham Hill. Peter Harper. Peter Riley there, number 44, jumped 10 places in a phenomenal drive on his modified MG. And Tiny Lewis wasn't hanging about. Hill's pursuit of the Mercedes and Harper's pursuit of Hill, as all three came closer and closer together on the road, not only provided spectators with one of the finest battles of the day, but also secured both team prizes for the Sunbeam drivers. Hill gained 13 seconds on Knoll, Harper gained 6 seconds on Graham Hill, and as they swept on to the completion of their 4 timed laps, their co-drivers at the roadside breathed an audible sigh of relief. But for some, the anxious time was not yet over. Pat Moss had only a 6-second lead over Ann Hall for the ladies' prize. And there was still plenty to talk about as race succeeded race and the final general classification was resolved. The Minis proved as impudent as ever. Lyndon Sims had the distinction of making the fastest time of the day. John Sprinsel did his best to fog the issue, but struggled on to finish second in his class. Pat Moss didn't let anything get between her and the ladies' prize. Several people frightened themselves half to death, and a happy day was had by one and all. And wasn't this where we came in? The parade of all the classified finishers, in their order, drawn up in the square before the ancient palace of the Princes of Monaco. To Paddy Hopkirk and Jack Scott, an impressive collection of silverware. Third in the general classification, first in the unmodified 1600cc class. And for the 5th consecutive year, a Sunbeam was the highest placed British car. Indeed, the 5 work Sunbeams were the 5 best British cars, finishing 3rd, 4th, 10th, 12th and 17th in the field, and winning the nominated and unnominated team prizes into the bargain. The Rapiers were 1st, 2nd, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th in the class. Paddy Hopkirk borrowed an Alpine to win the separate driving test on the front, and Peter Harper won the cup for the highest placed driver to compete in 10 Monte Carlo rallies. The verdict? The best Monte Carlo there had been for several years, despite the kindness of the weather. And fair or foul, on the road or on the circuit, the Sunbeams had shone again.